Sports fans anywhere can earn a nationally recognized degree from Penn State online. Whether you're starting or finishing your degree, study where and when it's convenient for you. Choose from more than 125 programs to become a top prospect in your field and advance your career. Learn more at worldcampusinfo.com. Penn State World Campus, a world of possibilities, online. Visit worldcampusinfo.com today. That's worldcampusinfo.com.
Here we are. We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and we welcome you to hour 14 of the Fantasy Football Marathon presented by DraftKings. And it is our delight to welcome into our studio as we continue the football conversation here this morning, Field Yates, who is resplendent in a green T-shirt that says...
Yater's gonna yate. Well, thank you, Greeny. I appreciate you shouting that out right away.
Yater's gonna yate.
That's
just
right.
So for those listening only on radio, you could understand.
Shot of this right here.
Yater's gonna yate.
That's right. Sort of has a fantasy tie-in to it, you know, as you guys can imagine.
Yeah.
As someone who covers the fantasy industry, there are those who are grateful for your insight and advice, and there are those that believe you are a machine that calculates what's going to happen every Sunday with a game that includes 22 variables, as in 22 players. And when you have one errant call, they treat you as if you have ended their world and deserve unjust criticism on social media, which is where this slogan derived from. Yater's gonna yate.
A, sounds like you've been down that road. B, sound like you're whining a little bit.
Yeah. Listen, we haven't slept too much. I'm not Barry and Schefter. Yeah. And you know something. It's funny. You mentioned how do Barry and Schefter put up with each other? You know, I spend basically every day from August 1st until the Super Bowl with Matthew. So Schefter and I had a 15-minute powwow. He checked his phone only 4 times during that 15 minutes, and I gave him the 5 tips of surviving Matthew Berry for 28 hours. So
what are they?
Can I reveal those publicly?
Oh, I don't know. I
listen to about 15% of what Matthew says, and then for the remaining 85%, like half of that is nodding and agreeing, as if I actually great call. So.
Let me get a quick thought from you on a variety of different topics around the fantasy world. I'm just looking at our hot list, and we have some quotes attributed to Tom Brady this morning. He was on WEEI, where he does regular appearances. And he was asked about this coming year's Patriots team, asked whether they are as loaded as any team he's ever played for. And he said, it is really unfair to set expectations in my mind. It's really a setup. You're talking about some magical years we've had that may never be duplicated again. I think a lot of people look at this team, particularly with the addition of Brandon Cooks, and waiting to see if Rob Gronkowski is able to come back as even 90% of what he is, which to me is as dangerous an offensive weapon as there is in the entire National Football League. And the one X factor in all of it for me is actually Brady, as crazy as that sounds, that it's just impossible to believe that at the age of 40, he isn't at some point going to start showing signs of that age. Now, it may very well not be this year, but from a fantasy standpoint, if everything goes right, he could be the number 1 quarterback taken.
Yeah,
where are people taking him?
So Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are sort of in a quarterback mini tier of their own. And everybody here at ESPN that covers fantasy preaches patience when it comes to drafting your quarterback. So Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers could, in theory, be the top 2 scoring players in fantasy last year. Obviously, quarterbacks much more likely to score more points. But they could be terrific this season and not be drafted until the back end, 3rd round, top of the 4th round in our expert mock drafts, because those who are drafting in said drafts are saying, you know something, you take Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers early, I can get Andrew Luck in the 7th round, I can get Derek Carr in the 10th round, I can get Phillip Rivers in the 12th round, I can get Carson Palmer on waivers in week 1. Not that Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers won't be outstanding, but quarterback is exceptionally volatile at the very top of the food chart. Really, Drew Brees has been an anomaly in terms of his consistency of late. I mean, think about Cam Newton, who was being drafted about where Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers are this time last year after his phenomenal MVP season, and things dip. They crater. But do I think Tom Brady is bound for success? I have a hard time envisioning that offense not being top 3 in scoring in the NFL this year, and probably without really breathing too heavily.
Yeah, you talk about Breeze. Breeze, the active leader in career fantasy points. He's recorded at least 300 points in the NFL record, 6 consecutive seasons. From what I have heard from you guys, this is as deep a quarterback class from the fantasy side as you guys have seen in a while. True?
I can't think of a deeper one in recent years, and which furthers the notion that, hey, wait on your quarterback. I mean, Andy Dalton, in basically every healthy season that he has had since after his rookie year, it's been like a top 12 fantasy quarterback. There was a year he was playing lights out and got hurt around week 10 or 12 of this. I think it was week 12 of this season. He was top 5 in scoring. He's being drafted on average 20th amongst quarterbacks. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton, as I just mentioned right there. These are all players that are more than sufficient starters that can be had in these late rounds, and they're going to be, so if you play in a 2-quarterback league, it's one of those rare years where we actually have good depth. Bye weeks won't be as frightening as they can be in a 2-quarterback league when all of a sudden you're choosing between a Browns or a Jets quarterback in a given week and having to start one of them just because you have no other option.
And which one of those were you referring to? I mean, at that point, between the Browns and the Jets, if I told you have to take one quarterback from those rosters, and I can think right off the top of my head of 6 people, and maybe I'm forgetting somebody that would entail, which one would you take?
If I have to? Do I have to?
Yes, you have to take one of the 6 quarterbacks.
If I have to take one, I think it's Brock Osweiler because I'm debating who's the most likely to start for those two teams in week 1. I think it's Brock Osweiler, and I think it's Josh McCown. Then you boil it down to, okay, if you had to have some small sample size of Brock Osweiler, what's it going to be this year, and who is a better supporting cast? What the Browns have or what the Jets have for however long Brock Osweiler and Josh McCown are the starters. I'm not saying the Browns have a skill position group that's like the Patriots, but you know something? It's actually got some young, promising players, and they gave a bunch of money to Kenny Britt this offseason. So, yes, I would prefer the Browns supporting cast. I mean, really, though, the answer is none. The answer is none.
You know, like most drafts for players in the pros, we all know who top guys are, and we all know the value of them. But, you know, just like Jimmy Johnson would do and other great drafters, you make your team by what you do later. So that's where I always look. Who are those sleeper guys or those guys that you can get in those middle to later rounds that are going to bring you those points?
You know, it's really funny. I've sort of been championing the idea that we need to do away with sleepers because the fantasy industry is covered so extensively. I mean, we are in hour 14 of a 28-hour fantasy football marathon on television, radio, YouTube streaming, Instagram stories. It's so saturated. I drop names and people are like, that's a sleeper to you? Like, yeah, I drafted that guy in my keeper league, back in April, the day after the draft. However, that being said, I would say players that are being underdrafted right now include guys like Rob Kelly, the starting running back for Washington, by the way, not the co-starter running back. And I understand that Samaje Perine was a nice pickup for them in the draft this year, 4th-round pick out of Oklahoma. Coaches love reliability more than anything else out of running backs. Rob Kelly, to me, remains the starter in Washington. He's going like in the middle of the 10th round, maybe even later. That's hard to find value-wise right there. If you could ever get healthy, and Bruce Arians has expressed frustration over his entire wide receiver group, basically not named Larry Fitzgerald. But John Brown's got a lot of talent, and it felt like understanding that sickle cell issue was what kind of dragged him down last year, gave me renewed hope for him this year. He's barely practiced, if at all, this training camp. So his price is probably going to go down, down, down. But if he gets healthy in the next week or so and can show something during the final legs of preseason, I do think John Brown has enough talent there. And then Kenny Golladay, I said this over the weekend, his days of being a deep sleeper. This is a 3rd-round pick, Northern Illinois, Detroit Lions. Big, fast, physical guy who had 2 touchdowns in his first preseason game after sort of tearing up OTAs and also the beginning portion of training camp, or whatever that means, right? That's why I throw the air quotes around there, obviously. So those are some names that, Galladay's going to have a hard time getting a major workload in a busy Detroit offense. But if you play in a deep, deep league or you play in a dynasty league, some names to keep in mind.
So two guys that I took, again, me and my son Mike were in Minnesota, ESPN 1500. We had this whole fantasy draft thing, and we did a mock draft with a bunch of guys up there. guy I took two guys I took. One I don't think is a sleeper. I think is really good. And the other I want to ask you about, but first was Delaney Walker.
Yep.
Tight end from Tennessee. I think that is, I know he's been in the league a while, but still pretty productive.
Steady Eddie. You think about fantasy football, and probably one way to – listen, you don't want to finish anything but first, right? So you have to incorporate some risk into your lineup. You can't just have a bunch of guys that are going to be good for, their 9 to 12 points per week. You want to have some guys that have the 25-point upside in a given week. Why Gronks and players, Des Bryant's will go way high and with some risk, but with some major reward. But Delaney Walker is super steady at the tight end spot. And if you're not going to draft a Gronk or a Tyler Eifert or Jordan Reed or Travis Kelce, Greg Olsen, those kind of guys, Delaney Walker is sort of that comfortable tight end option. Not going to have a ton of 20-point weeks, but probably won't have any implosion weeks where he goes for the bagel, which there are other guys that have tight end upside. Look at Julius Thomas,
right,
who might have 8 touchdowns this season, reunited with Adam Gase, but he also might have some games where he goes 1 catch, 14 yards.
And then there's a guy I think I took just because I needed to have a Notre Damer on my roster. It's a guy who flashed but has been injured, CJ Prosise. I took him late, but man, I think he's a guy that could score big, but also, like you said, may give you nothing.
If you're going to take a guy that is not the starter, it's good to have a guy that has a defined role. And Eddie Lacy and Thomas Rawls are very different players from CJ Prosise, which is a good thing for Prosise's value. So CJ Prosise is going to play on obvious passing situations. He is going to play when they go up-tempo. He is going to play when Seattle is playing from behind, which may not be all that often.
Right.
And if you believe in the idea that Seattle's offensive line is not going to be much improved, and this is sort of anecdotal evidence more than it is statistical evidence for C.J. Prosise, no quarterback was pressured on a higher percentage of his dropbacks last year than Russell Wilson. The offensive line stinks. What happens often when a quarterback –
Dump
it off. When a quarterback is pressured, you look for the check down. C.J. Prosise probably is their best option there. They were certainly excited about him in Seattle last year. His game well, his jack of all trades at Notre Dame, switching positions, etc. But he's going to be a guy that has a lot of value in PPR scoring.
You are listening to hour 14 of our Fantasy Football Marathon. Reminder, you can sign up and play fantasy football on ESPN.com or in the ESPN Fantasy Football app. Field Yates is here. Yater is going to Yate.
That's right, Greeny. You look good in one of these shirts. You know that?
Get me one of those shirts. That's my color. I will gladly wear one.
I was going to say, what size you rocking
Probably
these
the
days?
same you're wearing.
A little extra medium?
No.
See, here's the funny thing, and I was going to mention that Field is brought to us by DraftKings. Try daily fantasy for free at DraftKings. Use the code Mike now at DraftKings.com. It was Friday morning on this very program that we demonstrated that Mike Golick Sr., Mike Golick Jr., and I all wear the same size shirt.
No.
Now, we don't look exactly the same in them, but we do wear the same size. You've lost a lot of weight. You now wear an XL.
I do.
Mikey has lost a lot of weight. He wears an XL. I wear an XL. We wear the same. I put my shirt on Mikey, and it fit.
It was like Lycra on him. The buttons were screaming.
It was a little tight,
and
but
his
he
shirt
wore it
on
and he
you was like his shirt on you was a tent.
I couldn't tell.
True.
I couldn't tell if Junior just had the rest of his upper body tattooed, or if that was a T-shirt.
Yeah.
You are an XL.
I wear an XL. What do you wear? What is
this?
That?
Is a medium right here. I thought at best, Green,
right
you're pushing
now,
a large.
You would fit in that shirt.
I'm not saying I wouldn't fit in it, but my size is XL. That's the size that I wear.
I disagree completely.
You prefer comfort over like the sleek, form-fitting wear these days?
No, I don't prefer anything over sleek, form-fitting wear, but that's a whole different discussion for a different time. Well, let us take us back here to the fantasy football stuff. Rookies. Yeah. Which are always kind of difficult. But, to me, running backs are like a lock. You saw Zeke Elliott coming last year. I saw notes here that said that the only 2 rookies that people are really excited about this year are Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey. To me, they're leaving one big name out in Minnesota. What are your thoughts?
Dalvin Cook certainly has an excellent shot at becoming the starter right now in Minnesota, if for no other reason that he's the healthiest guy out there. Now, he was also a freak at Florida State. I mean, he was a big play waiting to happen. He kind of carried that offense last year that went through some growing pains as they transitioned to a new quarterback early on, I would say. That there were some growing pains for that offense. It got much better down the stretch. Tons of big plays, excellent in the passing game. Kind of has some Jamal Charles-like elements to his games, both as a runner and as a receiver. The question mark, amongst the question marks for Dalvin Cook, was a bit of an injury issue lingering into the pre-draft process. And also, athletically, he did not test well at the combine. And you guys know how much those numbers, whether they should or should not, can scare or encourage an NFL team. Dalvin Cook had a very pedestrian combine compared to the rest of his NFL running back brethren. However, right now he looks like he is in place or in line to be the starter in Minnesota. Maybe the offensive line is not dramatically improved. Maybe the passing game is still limited. But I do like Dalvin Cook. And then I'll mention another name, running backs, rookies, Joe Mixon. Talent-wise, he would have gone in the first round in the NFL draft. We understand that. It's not always about talent. There's a lot more there, and it's a complicated. Listen, there's a brutal, awful decision and action taken by him. In Cincinnati right now, he is primed to at least compete for that starting job. And I'll mention this stat only because it actually helps paint the case of why Joe Mixon could be valuable. Over the past 3 seasons, only Jeremy Hill, the Bengals running back, has 7 or more rushing touchdowns in each of the 3 seasons. That is not to say that I think Jeremy Hill is still going to be that player for Cincinnati. It's more to say someone's going to score rushing touchdowns for the Bengals. They are a dedicated running offense, and if the offensive line can find its form with a couple of new young starters, then I think Joe Mixon, who's a terrific pass catcher as well, has a chance to challenge to be the best rookie running back as well this year.
Well, I guess that's what I would ask about, and I loved watching Fournette play in college and his style of running. But I'm trying to figure out his value from the fantasy side for a guy that doesn't catch a lot of balls out of the backfield yet, and hopefully that will come in time, like it hopefully should with Todd Gurley as well, because he didn't do a lot of that in college either. And then so they're going to give him the ball a lot, but he's running behind an offensive line that's not very good with a team that doesn't score a ton of points. So where's the value there?
So I would hope that, by the way, there are a lot. I feel like there's a nice list of LSU players that evolve significantly at the pro level, and you're like, wait, how do they have all these guys on that offense, right? Obviously, the Odell Beckham Jr. class is the one that everybody is kind of referring to. They had so much talent on that offense, and we see players do things and incorporate skill sets into the pro level that we didn't know they had. So for Fournette, I think he can catch the football. I really do. I don't think that's something that is a deficiency in his game. I don't think it was asked much of him at LSU because, absent the weeks where they were playing, maybe Alabama and maybe on occasion one other team, like they were just going to out-physical you and hope they could beat you 14-10. The offensive line is, I'd say okay in Jacksonville, which applies to a lot of offensive lines right now in the NFL. But they have made it clear, like their goal this year certainly sounds a lot like what the Denver Broncos did a couple of years ago when they won the Super Bowl. Play outstanding defense, run the football, control the clock with the running game, and limit pressure on Blake Bortles. Take the pressure off of him by maybe not having him throw the football all that much. Right. So I think Leonard Fournette is justifiably being taken. He's going to have to be in the top 15 running backs. You just get to a point where all of a sudden it's like you get to a point before you realize it, you're getting to like Eddie Lacy territory. Is he even the starter in Seattle? You've got guys like Patriots running backs where you have no idea who's going to be the starter in a given week. Jets running backs who I like Bilal Powell and I like Matt Forte, but they could be playing from behind all the time. So I think Leonard Fournette, based off of projected workload, is probably a pretty reasonable bet to go in the top 15 amongst any running backs in any draft.
We are Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with the Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you. And then a quick final thought that would be more self-serving for Mike and for me. And this doesn't have anything to do with the fact, in this particular case, that this marathon is presented by DraftKings. But that's what Mike and I do.
Right.
The daily fantasy. To what degree? I'm just curious. To what degree, what percentage of the questions that you get are about that? How much has that taken hold? And what, if any, kind of work can people be doing now if that's their anticipation that they're going to be playing that daily fantasy as the season goes on? What, if anything, should we be paying attention to now?
So to start with the question about percentage of questions, it's probably a sliver, maybe 5 to 10% in a given week, and it tends to pick up in volume as the season gets over. People are like, listen, my season-long team was out of it in week 7. Like, I'm all in on daily only now. But we do get a lot of questions about it throughout the course of the year. We'll talk about it a bunch on the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast, which is now back in session throughout the season. So we'll have some daily talk there. And in terms of factors and things that can sort of help you now, I would say that like a general familiarization with the ins and outs of daily fantasy certainly helps. Understanding like if you're going to set multiple lineups, how to go about setting multiple lineups, and also just like factors that truly matter. And I'm not just talking about like the weather on a given day, but red zone stats for opponents and perhaps year-to-date stats, like how many opportunities a guy is getting in the red zone, even if he hasn't scored a bunch yet. Like if there's a guy who's like a statistical anomaly, like listen, he's 12 red zone targets with just one touchdown, like that's bound to regress back to the mean in a positive way, I guess progress back to the mean. So I would say factors that I think really matter in season long can impact daily fantasy as well, but also just be mindful of the idea that like in daily fantasy, there really is no prize for second place. Like, you got to go all in. You got to find some volatility in there. So you're going to have weeks where you have you bet the house on guys that might do nothing for you.
Right.
But you don't win by just having a bunch of guys that are solid.
Yep.
All right, a reminder of also, you can, if you are a fantasy football player, you must know about the Fantasy Focus podcast, weekdays on the ESPN app and on Apple Podcasts. It's Field, it's Matt Berry, it's Stefania Bell with the latest fantasy news and notes and advice. And Field will join us every week during the NFL season with the very latest. There's a live taping, by the way, of the Fantasy Focus podcast today in the ESPN cafeteria. So I invite anyone who can get access to the ESPN cafeteria to come by and watch that. We have a tote board working to see how many teams have been drafted today on the ESPN during the ESPN Fantasy Football Marathon. And let's take a look as we look it up. And there it is. The numbers are coming up. We are at 1.16 million and counting. That's how many teams have been drafted. And, of course, we are at this point just basically halfway through the Fantasy Football Marathon.
It's amazing.
Last year, we got to 1.75 million over the total of the 28 hours. So we've got another, 10 or 11 hours to go, more than that. 11 o'clock. We've got 14 hours to go.
Right. Looks like we'll get there.
We're gonna let's coast to the 2 million plus. No problem.
Absolutely. Keep drafting those teams, and we are delighted to have you along with us. Field, good to see you. Get me one of those T-shirts. I'd love to have it.
Consider it done.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Shefty and Berry are back with us. We mentioned Shefty's side gig. How about Berry's new gig? In addition to all the work that you do all year long with all the fantasy stuff, we have a brand new show, pieces of which can already be seen, but then the big debut is tomorrow, right?
Yeah, 3 p.m. on ESPN. And then we'll see if they let us make another one. Be honest.
All starts with one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to tell you what I've noticed about this fantasy over the last few years is, and it's something I compare Greeny with what you and I did for the NCAA basketball, and we would have our wager every year.
Sure.
And what the bracket
Your bracket
wager,
of integrity.
Yes.
Right?
The sheets of integrity,
Sheets
the
of
bracket
integrity,
wager where I've had my legs shaved, you've milked cows, and you did Justin Bieber songs. What you have to do in some of these leagues that these people have around the country is unreal, with the losers getting tattoos or having to make videos, or it's become almost how bad can you make it for the loser in these leagues? The pressure's got to be amazing.
As fantasy football has grown, and as some of these punishments have gotten viral and everything like that, and I wrote about them in the book, and they all have to top each other. So it's not just tattoos, but the tattoos get chosen by the winners. Like, so this past year, I saw 2 different leagues where one loser had to get a Donald Trump tattoo, and another league, the person got a Hillary Clinton tattoo. And whatever your political affiliation, like, neither of those are great options. I mean, so I've seen them all. I saw the worst one I've ever seen is I saw one guy, tattoos bad. One guy got branded. Like the way, the way they do with cattle. Like, he got I mean, it was.
Did you see Matthew's tattoo of Mort? on his butt for losing in our league.
That wasn't for losing in our league. That was just because I'm a fan. Some of the more fun ones, I'll give you a couple of quick fun ones that aren't as extreme as that. There's these guys, and they sent me the video. I retweeted it on Twitter. They went to like a elementary school, where they have those 8-foot hoops. And the poor guy that lost had to stand under the hoop while everyone else in the league dunked on him. And they filmed it, and they did slow motion and the whole thing. So I thought that was pretty fun, posterizing. There was another league where it's an auction draft, and you get $100 at the auction, except the person who finished last, who only got $50. And then they had to go out. This is in North Carolina. They had to go out and be a mime for change, and whatever they earned was plus their $50. So they had to earn up to $50 to try to get to $100.
That's so cool.
It took them like 4 hours.
We just had a stat up here. 68% of fantasy leagues have a punishment for the losing player, and there's obviously the extreme, which gets out of control.
It brings people closer together. It's fun. It's a bonding moment. You all get together and you have fun. I mean, you guys have had so much fun with your bets over the years.
We did, but the thing was trying to outdo it every year. So for those that are really looking for the home run, it gets difficult year after year.
Everything is fun until a cow defecates on you. All right, we're in the midst of hour 14 of our fantasy football marathon presented by DraftKings. We'll work a little football conversation into this as well. Shefty, I'll tell you what I'm fascinated about. To me, one of the biggest, maybe the biggest storyline going into the NFL season is the following. We read some quotes earlier this morning. Tom Brady was on WEEI, his regular appearance, and he doesn't want to talk about going 16-0. Surprise, surprise. And says it's not fair to the teams he's been on that were great before to be talking about them now. They are so loaded and so good. Jimmy Garoppolo goes out and looks really good in the preseason game the other night. They're going to have some fascinating decisions ahead of them, Bill is, when it comes to Brady, who is now 40, who a year from now will be 41, who if he wants to franchise tag Garoppolo, Brady gets to be 42 years old. All of a sudden he might be paying, if he wants to franchise Garoppolo, he's made it clear he wants to keep Garoppolo because he could have traded him for a king's ransom this year and didn't. So you'd be looking at a situation where if Brady plays well, Garoppolo could be making infinitely more money next year as the backup than Brady is as the starter, or if Brady starts to slip, he's got a fascinating decision to make. To me, this is the storyline to watch going into the season.
I thought one of the most interesting things from the Super Bowl is that Tom Brady was 30 minutes from being on the ropes there. Because if they had continued losing 28-3, and that game ended up, 34-10, the storyline all offseason would have been, is it time to replace Tom Brady in New England with Jimmy Garoppolo? That would have been the storyline. And with one half of football, he stopped that in its tracks, averted all that conversation, and put it off for another day. But look, I know that he is beaten all these teams and won all these Super Bowls, and he's beaten Father Time. But how much can he keep beating Father Time? There's been nobody like the guy who's done it at this level. But at some point, right, I don't care how good a Performance Center TB12 is, and I don't care what he's eating and how much avocado ice cream he's consuming. At some point, he has to start slowing down and become a mortal quarterback, which he has not been for 18 years, right?
Right.
So along those lines.
And when he does, what happens?
All right, so from the football side, there's that. But from the fantasy side, everybody keeps talking about that. So where do the tentacles go there? What does that do for Tom Brady for fantasy? What does that do then for the guys he's going to throw to? What do you think of Brandon Cooks then? And then Gronk, White coming out of the backfield, I think, who had 60 catches last year. So what's the fallout from that potential?
They're loaded. To me, the Brandon Cooks thing is the really interesting thing. That offense still is going to run through Gronk. I love him at the end of the second round this year. He's just the number one tight end, and because of the injury concerns, he's dropping at the end of the second round. He's a guy that can win you your league week in, week out. So I love Gronk there. I think Edelman takes a dip because of Brandon Cooks. But the question is Brandon Cooks the last couple of years, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. The Patriots have not had a wide receiver get 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns since 2011 Wes Welker. Now, Gronk has done it, but, can they have 3,000-yard receivers? Can they do that? Especially because you've also got Chris Hogan and Malcolm Mitchell, and you mentioned James White, and they got Rex Burkhead and Mike Gillisley, and Deion Lewis is still there. I mean, they have so many weapons and Dwayne Allen, by the way. Don't forget Dwayne Allen, who's a nice red zone threat. I mean, so Brady's going to have a monster year. It's just, can Brandon Cooks be Randy Moss? And not that anyone can ever be Randy Moss, but that's the kind of talk you're hearing out of New England, is that not since Randy Moss in 2007 have they had this kind of a deep threat for Tom Brady.
Take the lid off of defense.
Yeah.
Right.
So we go from the fantasy then back to the reality, and to Greeny's question, so then what do the Patriots do? Because Garoppolo's contract will be up after the year. And I think there are a couple of different options. First of all, they really want to keep Garoppolo. So, number one, you could always put the franchise tag on him and decide to pay 2 quarterbacks because that's how important the position is. Number two, at some point you try to sign the guy to a long-term extension, and you build an incentive so the time for when Tom.
If you're Jimmy Garoppolo, if you're Jimmy Garoppolo and the people that are advising him, aren't you like, look, you could go cash in, and obviously we're talking about a lot of money here. But
he'd make a lot of money if he stayed there too.
Make a lot of money here. And by the way, whenever Tom Brady decides it's time, you're playing for the greatest coach in NFL history and a franchise that is so well run from top to bottom. Like, you're given the keys to the kingdom. Do you really want to go sign money to it?
You're also playing for a coach who's going to be pushing 70. Who's definitely coming to the back end of his career, and
you're following the footsteps of a legend, which is
and
very
forgetting the
difficult
franchise tag. If you did it for a year of $20-some million, in my opinion, there is no conceivable way that they could offer him. Forget the franchise. If they tried to offer him a deal that would match the deal he would get somewhere else. I don't think there's any, because you know what they're paying on potential out there, and Garoppolo under Belichick.
No.
He's going to get offered a ton somewhere else.
Well, he would get offered a lot, but maybe they could structure a deal that would be favorable to him, that there would be a little bit of a difference, but not enough that would say, you know what, I don't want to go leave for Team X, and I'm going to stay right here with the Patriots. Again, there are a few different ways. All I'm saying is it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could find a way to keep him. That's all I'm saying. However they decide to do that.
I also think, by the way, it's just when you talk about Tom Brady, who has had such an unbelievable, amazing career and 5 Super Bowls and everything like that, do you really think Tom Brady hangs on if he's not playing at elite level? Don't you feel like this guy's legacy is so huge, and he takes such good care of himself that if he feel that, I just don't see him sort of hanging on and trying to gut it out if he's not at an elite level.
A lot of times the players are the last to admit that they're losing anything.
Yeah, the question is whether he feels any slippage before Bill Belichick sees any slippage. Right. Your son, Mike 8 Jr., has said many times he believes Brady will finish in another uniform.
I disagree with that.
Because you think he'll retire, or because rather than go someplace else?
I think he'll play 3 more years with the Patriots, and then I think he'll be done.
3 more years. That you're talking about unprecedented territory. You're talking about a guy playing at a high level at that position at 43.
It's going to happen at some point.
No, not necessarily. It's never happened before.
And a bunch of things that have never happened before then happen.
Right, but
this is something that will.
Some things never happen.
Okay.
Like some things have never happened before because they're impossible and they cannot be
Nobody
done.
will match Cy Young's wins.
Right.
Somebody will play into their 42, 43 years old.
We'll see. Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And don't forget, this is our 14 of the Fantasy Football Marathon, and these guys will be here for every minute of it. He's Adam Schefter. He's Matthew Berry. Great to see you guys. As always. Thank you.
Thank you very
Check
much.
in again soon.
By the way, in terms of things that you never thought would happen, they're giving me a show. I mean, let's be honest.
Good point.
That's a big upset. Right there you go.
There
to
you
your
go.
point, Golick.
Good point.
Things that you think would never happen, and then they do.
I saw that happen. The thing I never thought would happen, that a man of your fine grooming would take a shower here at ESPN, but you seem to have done that.
I did. A lot of water, Shefty. I'm not going to lie. You were very nice with leaving the towel there, but there was a lot of water on the floor. A lot of water on the floor.
Well, it's not exactly like they have some kind of ledge up. It's just a flat shower with a flat floor.
It's not well designed.
It's
I will
not a
grant you that.
spa, okay?
Right. It is definitely. It's basically a nozzle on a floor.
And it's not very hot, is it?
No.
And the pressure's not very good.
No.
But it's a shower.
It was a shower.
There you go.
That's one of those experiences. I just feel I'm cleaner than that. Like I feel I could only be made dirtier.
You
by
would
taking
shower
that
in that shower and get dirtier.
You stay up for 14 hours straight. You see how you feel.
No, listen. All right, we'll have this conversation off the air.
Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com. Mike and Mike, as the sun comes up across the ESPN campus in Bristol, Connecticut, in the midst of our 14th hour of the Fantasy Football Marathon presented by DraftKings. So we're basically halfway through. It's 28 hours in total. Mike 8 Jr. and Sarah Spain are just running amok with this Fantasy Football Island.
That's been the biggest thing. Mike and Stu Gatz were sitting on the island for the entire 28 hours. Mike and Sarah have yet to get to Fantasy Island. It's been incredible travels for them.
It's reminiscent, I think, of Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro in Midnight Run, where they were just desperately trying to get where they were going.
It's either that or planes, trains, and automobiles. that it could be that one too.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm with you, and I'm just moving on. How about that Bears game last week?
That's awesome.
Let me read you a tweet here. Nathan Burr tweets at us, why are we talking about Tom Brady as if he's anywhere near not being the best quarterback in the league? I'm going to take your words very literally, Nathan, and I understand what you're saying, and you're right. But he is somewhere near not being the best quarterback in the league. Now, he was arguably the best in the league last year, and he is, in my opinion, inarguably the greatest that ever played the game. But he is definitely somewhere near not being that anymore. Now, that somewhere could be 3 months. It could be, Golick thinks it could be 3 years. I will definitely take the under on 3 years. I have one hard, fast philosophy, and that is that no one gets rich in Vegas betting on things to happen that have never happened before. And there were some things that I saw Michael Jordan get old. I saw Kareem Abdul-Jabbar get old. I saw Willie Mays get old. The greatest players ever get old. And I understand Brady takes care of himself in an almost unprecedented way, and there are almost unprecedented methods for doing that. And I get that he plays a position that a diminution of his athletic ability will not create that much of a... I get all of that. Mm-hmm. But it's just not possible that this is going to go on forever.
Well, we know it's
so. The
not
question is, where does that line
That's
get
the big
drawn?
Question. You don't think it'll go as far as I do? I get everybody has a shelf life, but the shelf life can change through a number of things. From lack of injury to preparation to, just how you age, how you recover from aches and pains to how you take care of yourself. And all that is changing. So he may be that guy. You hear more and more quarterbacks talking about it, from the Eli Mannings to the Drew Breeses to the Aaron Rodgers, about being, and Aaron's 7 years younger.
7 years younger
than Brady. But all these guys talk about it more now. Talking about it and doing it are two different things, and Brady is right there to try and do it. For a guy that's not injured, that's not dealing with an injury, especially an upper body injury, he had the knee back in 2008. Well, I believe that was the year. He's not a runner anyway. If his upper body is healthy, I just don't all of a sudden see this fall off. Especially this year. Why would we expect this year to be a fall off? For a guy that's not injured and just getting older, I would expect it to be a little more gradual, especially if he is still as diligent as that's also something that adds to it. As you get older, if you want to keep playing, but you're not doing as much, in the off season. I'll be good. I'll get in shape a little later. I've been around a while. I don't need to put in the time and effort. And I'm not with Tom every day. But if he's as diligent as he's been, then I think while he will not play forever, Father Time will win eventually. He can hold off on that number better than others have done in the past.
No, I'm not even arguing that. What I am saying is, Bill Belichick has a fascinating decision to make if he really believes Jimmy Garoppolo is the future of his quarterback or of his franchise at quarterback, because Brady, no matter what, let's even take your number. Let's go 3 years. That's not that long.
They got to have a quarterback ready to go after that.
And so, look at Green Bay. Well, they went from Favre to Rodgers. Right. Look at Indianapolis. They went from Peyton to Luck. They stayed good. Look at Miami. They still haven't figured it out. Right. From Dan Marino retired in 1990, whatever it was, it's 20 years and they haven't had a quarterback.
I get it.
So if you believe Garoppolo is good, he doesn't have to be Brady good. He just has to be really good.
That can continue on what they're doing.
In your mind, what do you do? That's what makes it fascinating.
Yeah, it does. I agree with you there. It will be fascinating, from the franchise tag, which they can do, to the fact of trying to do a deal with him that will, without question, be of less value than what another team would offer him in free agency.
Let's go to the tote board. How many teams have we signed up today? At ESPN, we are at 1.17 is what I'm being told. We will continue with Frank Caliendo next.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. home, safe home.
Here we are. We are Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests appear on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and we welcome you one and all to hour number 15 of our Fantasy Football Marathon, which is presented by DraftKings. It is our delight to be spending this hour with one of our absolute favorites. It's been too long since we've had a chance to say good morning to Frank Caliendo. Welcome, Frank.
Great to be here in the Arctic.
It is very cold.
It's insanely cold.
There was something wrong for those watching on TV with the backdrop sign behind us, and that they said they need it cold in here for it to stay working.
Yes, it had overheated.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's got to be 31 degrees in this room right now.
There could be snow at some point. I have to say, in this marathon where so many different things are done, the bit yesterday, you doing Family Feud against, who was it, Trey Field, Stefania Bell, Susie Kolber, and Louis Riddick on one side.
Yeah.
And, Green, if you didn't see it, it was just Frank on the other side.
Just standing on boxes for different heights.
Hilarious, but he just moved down doing obviously different characters giving answers. It was hilarious. One of them was great. It was best fantasy draft party food. Your pizzas and all that.
Right.
And Charles Barkley's answer was?
Caprese salad.
Oh!
With balsamic reduction. It doesn't get any better than that.
And obviously that wasn't up there.
The truth is that actually is an accurate statement, however. No one has ever...
Who are you? I love your planet.
What is there not to enjoy about a caprese salad?
Nothing. It's just a wonderful... It's just guy food.
Just not at a football fantasy tailgate.
You know what? There's never a time when it isn't a delight.
Well, the joke is, because you do start doing this stuff with producers, and sometimes they want you to actually play the game. I'm like, no, I don't want to come up with real answers.
Why? Yeah.
I want to come up with dumb answers.
Right.
And then I did a Ditka one of the what's the food? And I was like, butter. Yeah. Just a stick of butter. Just take it. Try to wrap it off. That's what you do. You got anything other than butter? Then I think Kenny was on this, or no, it was Trey saying, butter's in a lot of our favorite foods. I'm like, no, I just eat the butter right there. But Kenny has made such things. Kenny drove me back to the hotel last night, and it was supposed to be somebody from security, and he's like, I'll take you, right? So I've been working on my Kenny Mayne the whole time. It's just like, say awkward things and try and make them better, Try and say the things the producers don't want you to. It turns into Harlan Williams. This, hey, buddy, won't you not going to get around there? Finding some awkward impressions. I'm so tired of doing all the same impressions over and over.
But everything is off script as soon as Kenny is involved.
It's so much better because I was doing a lot of things that were just to camera, and it's fun. Like the most fun about, I think, even the LeBron letter, when I did the Morgan Freeman LeBron letter, I think it was more fun to watch you guys in the background, because I thought that thing was, I think I've told you this before, I thought it was dying. I thought it wasn't doing well at all. And because I was just I hadn't rehearsed it or anything. It was just an idea that was, and I thought, I'll try this. So I did it, and then I'm just, because I hadn't practiced it at all, I'm like concentrating on every single word, and you guys are holding the laughter back, and I don't know what's going on afterward, and it goes viral and goes crazy. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, I had no idea, but I said, it's more fun to watch you guys than what I'm doing, because you're just...
that was unreal.
The best part of it, was it Fallon that played it for Morgan Freeman?
Yeah, he played, because Morgan Freeman was there. He had a movie coming out.
Yeah.
He's like, so do you like it when people do impressions of you? No.
That was my favorite part. Caliendo is here with the Straight Talk. Not really, but it is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. And again, it's our fantasy football marathon. So John Gruden texted you at 5:43 in the morning?
Yeah, the other day he's like, I just did an imitation of you on a commercial. I'm like, what does that mean? And I don't know about you guys.
He did an imitation
That's
of
what
you?
he said. And I'm too scared of him to ask what that meant, because he's always been so nice. Like, hey man, you having fun? You enjoying your coaching? Because I coach a flag football team, and Steve Kime's son was on that team. So Carson Kime's on the team, and Kime texted Gruden, and then Gruden texts back, and I think I can say this because Gruden won't text swear words. He has like Johnny Dangerous replacement words. And he sends back, "You're not gonna win a floaking game, man." Like, what is it? What? It's just, But you're just and I'm reading the text as Gruden, and it was just interesting.
But anybody that's heard you do impressions, when I hear that person speak for real, I want them to be funny.
Right,
the only one that really lives up to it is Barkley.
Yeah,
Barkley will just say
I just say anything that I feel,
and he does. So you feel like, oh, Barkley's doing a great Frank right now, But the other guys that you see him, you want him to be like the way you portray.
I've started turning I've started to get bored. I'm really bored of some of my stuff. But like with the Schefter last night, the Adam Schefter was turning into helium Adam Schefter, and it went so high that actually dogs were starting to surround me. But it no longer. It's like the Madden character stopped being mad.
John Madden would talk in this kind of a tone and say the things that you would think he would say, but then to make it more fun, it became it just became some character from the Giggle Snort Hotel. Nobody's going to get that reference, but you're a Chicago guy. Boom, maybe you do. But it's that the guy. When I was at Mad TV, Will Sasso did that with Kenny Rogers, and it's when you take an impression and turn it into a character. He started out doing, I'm Kenny Rogers, but then he turned, I'm Kenny Rogers. He's drinking booze. And just when you turn him into the crazy character, that's when it becomes more fun for you.
Does, and then you want to see that person act
right.
Like that.
You want to see the person. You want to see Gruden out there. I'll tell you what, man. I just drank 55 Red Bulls. I didn't even drink them. I have them intravenously being put into my system, man. I tell you what, I'm about to have an aneurysm.
By the way, we're going to get into your coaching a flag football team because I have an illegal play that you obviously don't feel like.
I wasn't coaching that team.
Whatever. Well, we'll get into it and more to highlight your son, not you, but I definitely have a good video there.
Frank is here. It's hour 15 of the Fantasy Marathon. A reminder, sign up and play fantasy football on ESPN.com or in the ESPN Fantasy Football app. All right, so I tried to do something on the air about a month ago, and I realized I don't actually have the power to do this. I tried to magically summon Frank Caliendo.
And I saw it a little too late because I'm on the West Coast.
So I had a story that I immediately thought, the first person I thought of was you, and I said, this is a day that was designed for Caliendo. So a month later, I want to actually relive this moment. And it was a story about David Irving of the Dallas Cowboys, who was injured in a practice. He suffered a ripped nipple when he lost his nipple ring during practice.
That's why I wear pasties, man.
So they
little tassels. Can we say that in the morning?
Sure you can.
I've seen the Fantasy Island stuff. I'm not letting you get through the rest of the story, Greeny.
So here's the thing. Irving, they had to stop practice and try and find his nipple ring that had been yanked out of his nipple forcibly during a drill. He said, it hurt so bad I had to let the world know. When he asked why he got his nipple pierced in the first place, he said, well, that's my spot, man. When you get a pierce, it gets more sensitive. The girls love it.
Well,
so there were any number of things about this story that I found hilarious, but the first thought I had was, I want to see that happen in a game on Monday Night Football, someone's nipple ring get yanked out, and I want to hear what John Gruden would say.
What just happened to Tom Brady there, man? I didn't even know he was pierced in that area. How did that come out of there? Von Miller just pulled a nipple ring out of Tom Brady. Giselle's not going to be happy about this, man. I'll tell you what. This is getting a little scary right now. Belichick's out there on the field. Bill's trying to find the nipple ring.
Oh.
I tell you, he actually looks a little excited out there, man. I've never seen Bill Belichick smile more than trying to find a nipple ring out there at the stadium. Got to enjoy Foxborough, man.
Oh, man.
It's those little pauses, by the way, that you've developed with the Gruden thing. That he does do that.
Yeah, it's got that weird. I'll tell you what. There are so many. It must be the way he's thinking.
Yeah.
That's the other way I could figure it. But he will do those. It wasn't always there, and I think when he's cut, because he's creative. That's the thing I tell you. When I first met John, I was like, what I find interesting about you is you're probably the most creative person doing color analysis right now. Because people say you're the new John Madden. I talk about this in my act. Like, you're the new John Madden. No, you're the opposite. He would tell you things you already know, like, hey, that guy's got mud on his jersey. But Gruden's like, I'll tell you what, man, that play right there, That play was magical, man. I wonder if he went to school to learn a play like that. It's some magical school. What's that name of that school Harry Potter went to? You guys know that? Hogwarts? Tell you what, man. That's pretty Hogwartsian right there.
I like that he's got mud on his jersey.
That's the mad stuff, right?
You look there. You go if you go out of bounds, the play's probably going to be over.
I mean, it's just that's the stuff. That's the greatness of and people. I've tried to do color and because they'll have me go in, and people don't realize how hard it is to do that. And not only that. Is try to not sound like you've said the same thing a million times. Like baseball's got to be the toughest because you're just the same plays happen all the time.
Right.
Football, at least you're only doing 16, 17 games, a year. Baseball, they got to do it over and over and over, and to try and find interesting stuff to keep yourself going. That's the tough. That's the tough thing.
So what would Madden?
The tough thing.
So now let's go back many years ago, and now John Madden is doing a game, and a player has suffered a ripped nipple because his nipple ring was yanked.
Yeah, right there. We know. We know.
Be careful.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a lot of things you could say that you shouldn't say, and those are the things that I was going to say. So that's a problem. But I mean, something what got just pulled out of his chest right there? What? Was that? You ever see Indiana Jones when a guy pulls the heart out right there? I mean that's kind of what it was. But it came out of his nipple. I mean that's not what you want to. Why is it so funny to say nipple? And what? That happened. Kenny Stabler had that happen years ago. It was Dave Casper. It was in a practice, and Dave Casper was running around, and Kenny hit him, and boom! What's that on there? And they ended up using it as a nose ring.
Oh! Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Caliendo is here. Our guest on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, Matthew Berry, is on the way. Because we haven't had you, we haven't been able to sort of go around the horn a little bit with you, if we will, on some of our favorite impressions, and it's just always kind of fun to do.
Yeah.
So we can stay with the nipple ring theme if you want to.
Yeah, why not?
Go in whatever direction you want to.
I haven't been fired yet.
But just to throw another one at us here. So I don't know. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, now we have a guest appearance in the booth by Adam Sandler, and the nipple ring is.
Hey, take a look what's going on down on the field.
He's going to have to put that back on.
It's going to be, that looked painful. Look at that replay. There it is, and he's reaching in, and he actually reached through the shoulder pads and grabbed a nipple ring. How does that happen?
Hey, you got to have some dexterity.
Okay. Let's say it happened in basketball in Barkley.
Oh, listen, what just happened right there is Tim Duncan just got his nipple ring. I try to think of guys that it probably wouldn't be, and then pick that person because, but should have been. What if it's Lonzo Ball, big baller brand nipple ring? That's what the next thing. Come on, I don't know.
How about Bill Walton?
How great is this? Enjoying the world, realizing that jewelry can accentuate anything. Take a look at the chest of that human being right there. You'd think that the human body can't get any more beautiful, but dressing it up with a simple hoop makes it as great as it ever could be, not unlike the rings of Saturn. Take a look. That's where I spend my summers. I enjoy the planets. I enjoy the rotation and the universe we share together.
All right. Let's go to a movie set.
Okay.
Morgan Freeman in a take. One of the co-people he's working. Co-people.
Yes,
co-stars.
I'll tell you what, man.
One of those people.
Co-people he's working with. I got a few of those, man.
In the scene he's in, they get their nipple ring pulled out. And it's Morgan Freeman.
Ah, yes. On our trip to Vegas as a bunch of old guys, we had our nipple rings removed. Not simply, but forcefully. And throughout the rest of the movie, we'd figure out a way to get them put back in. But truth is, we had to find them first. Starring John Travolta.
Oh, my God. I didn't know it was coming out.
But is that new? I haven't.
No, it's old. It's John Travolta.
I get it, but I haven't seen you do that one.
Yeah, there's lots that. I mean, there's so many old ones that I.
Give me a little Travolta. I've never seen you.
I don't even remember. Oh my God, I had no idea. That's so good.
That's
because
welcome back, Cotter.
Yeah, right. Because
Yeah.
now he talks like this. It's almost Bill Clinton when he does it. It's the post. I don't even know. I can't think. Let's see. What's another? I did Harlan Williams earlier. It's the weird ones. Like I had comedian friends who I wish they'd have a sitcom like Brian Regan. You guys know Brian Regan?
I know who he is.
Gonna go do that. Or the Harlan Williams. Say there, my friend. What you're not gonna get around. People. These are the 7-minute abs. 8-minute abs. 7-minute abs. So yeah, they're not all going to be for everybody.
You want to go see Frank, you can go find out where to find him at frankonstage.com, including October 13th, Friday the 13th, at Foxwoods. Ooh, right here in Connecticut.
Yeah, Foxwoods the 13th. I think Boston is the next day. I got Atlantic City, Aurora right outside of Chicago, and there's one more day. Oh, right outside of Madison, Wisconsin Dells. There's only 5 shows as of right now that I'm doing this fall, and those are the ones. So frankonstage.com.
frankonstage.com. Go see him. October 13th could be a very good date for me. All right, you've got
let's do this. So you coach your sons
I coach a team, but I wasn't coaching this one, but I condone everything that's happening.
So let's throw this up, and I'm going to telestrate. It's your son Joey's 13 years old, correct?
Yeah.
And this is on the 5-yard going in.
This is at halftime of the Raiders-Cardinals game the other day.
Oh, wow. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
So let's give him his due. This is your son up top right here. So we'll just run the play through first. He's going to catch the touchdown pass, 5-yard route, illegal play. And there's a touchdown. Okay.
Look at those hands, though. He held on to that. He runs a 7-minute 40.
This is 13-year-old flag football. Watch the route. I mean, it is your classic pick play at the goal line. It's just unbelievable. Look at that. The pick play. So the quarterback, pretty smart here, is going to see your son come through. The safety, I got to say, I don't know who it is. Not like I want to be critical of a 13-year-old. Slow to the play, okay? This is.
I tell you what, man, you got to be on your toes. That guy's on his heels right there, man.
This is just slow recognition right now. So you have this defender staying with this receiver. This defender on your son starts to step with your son, but then backs off like it's his own. Boom, he's wide open. As I said, slow recognition there, and there's a touchdown. Really impressive.
And he holds on. That's the big thing.
How about this slow motion?
Yeah.
You see it. You know what I didn't notice? Let's do this. Look at that. Step to the outside. Look at that foot. Step into the outside, trying to pull the defender out and he gets the defender to turn before the illegal pick comes into play, and he's wide open in the middle of the field.
And Aiden hits him right on the money, man. That's how it goes. See, here's the thing. When I coached flag football, so I started coaching, and I was trying to do everything by the rules.
Oh,
it's not even close.
That's a mistake. Why would you do that?
No, they're all like, and you try not to run any play. I've got receivers running all away from each other. Meanwhile, we're playing people, and everybody's just crossing and all picks. And I'm like,
all picks, all the time.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Let's go. Let's
When
take
in Rome,
everything
right?
out. Yeah, that's how you do it. I have no couth, no savvy. I just go.
Let the ref call it.
Yeah, if you can't see it.
Now, at any time when you are coaching these games, or do you ever go into any of the voices of the coaches that you imitate? Like
the other coaches. That's how I met the coaches. That team's called Competitive Edge. And when I met that coach, EJ, he came across the field and was like, "Are you, Frank Caliendo?" I was like, "I'll tell you what, man." He's like, I didn't actually do that, but they started going, "Do some Madden." I'm like, "Boom, we want to beat you."
Well, it would be like Madden when his appearance in Little Giants, helping him call the play.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do it. And you got Rick Moranis. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
I'll tell you what. Okay, we got to have a play here, guys.
See, I'm bringing out all the old stuff for you today.
Who knew I had that? I got to have a shower. I took the ESPN shower. Actually got dirty. I heard that earlier. Very funny joke. Okay. That's a good one.
My goodness, the face.
That is
For those
so
of you on the radio,
good.
you got to see the face. He's just turning into Rick Moranis right before our eyes.
Here you go. Okay, that sounds pretty good.
And then one to leave it on before we go to a break. We're going to get Matt Berry in here, and I know that you have some stuff prepared with him as well. But there's just one I haven't heard in a while, and I feel like if you were to, whether it's the nipple ring or whatever you want, but let's just say for the sake of argument, it was being described by Lou Holtz.
I guess let's take a look. What the heck just fell out over there? It's killing something came out of his body, and it was supposed to be like one of those things just in the nose of a bull somewhere. Yeah, man, I just ran with the bulls the other day. It was crazy. Good.
There's not one word of that that's English,
God.
but it's extraordinarily entertaining.
Hey, everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, Sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
All right, we're glad you're checking us out today. Mike and Mike, it's hour 15 of the Fantasy Football Marathon presented by DraftKings. Frank Caliendo is in our studio, and we're rejoined now by our buddy Matthew Berry, who, of course, before fantasy football, before anyone knew this was going to be what it is, he made fantasy football cool. And he's here in our studio. And again, the launch of his brand new show on ESPN is tomorrow.
Yeah, fantasy show, 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, and then, assuming they'll let us do more, we'll be on 5 p.m. Every day, Monday through Friday on ESPN2. So 5 o'clock on ESPN2 after Thursday, and then Wednesday at 3 is the
Matthew
premiere.
was showing me some promo stuff last night, and it's very interesting and funny.
Thank you.
When I said interesting, I thought maybe it would lead people to think it's not good. No, it looks like it's going to be very good.
It's definitely going to be different.
Yeah,
it's definitely
weird and
different.
How
weird.
so? Give me a sense of how it's going to be different.
We got puppets.
Oh my!
It's
right
almost-
out of the gate, we got puppets.
What I would ask the audience, because people sometimes are like, how weird is it going to be? Just give it a chance. You can kill it if you after you watch it.
Fantasy football meets a little bit of Pee-wee's Playhouse.
That's right. Yeah,
I told him, you got to get a funny laugh or something.
Right.
I had no idea you were even be here.
It's pretty good.
Thanks. I'm going to try doing this professionally.
Yeah, you should. Well, I'm just you probably don't have a lot of Pee Wee Herman material in your act these days. So pull that one up.
Yeah. I got Travolta, that, and Rick Moranis. I'm king of the 80s right now.
You are.
Absolutely. But it is basically, it's a little bit of Mad Money, Jim Cramer's Mad Money.
Yes,
It's inspired by that, meets my childhood. It's fantasy football information presented in a fun way around sort of my personality, and we're going to talk about a lot of players that normally don't get talked about on ESPN. Like, I'm going to be the first guy on ESPN to say the name Xavier Grimble, who's a Steelers type.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know exactly. Who
that sounded more like a Simpsons
I remember
character.
him coming out of high school. Rated the way he was. Well, it's interesting. That Kramer, speaking of which, he was on yesterday doing his picks.
He's a big fantasy player.
Well, he is, and I wonder how much because he goes by your way. He will not pick players on teams he hates. He said you will never see a Giant on his team, never see a Cowboy on his team. How often do you hear that from people when you're giving out who you should take, and they would be like, well, I can't take that person because it's on a team
I don't hear it that often, but I certainly do hear it some. And it's not what I practice, obviously. I want the best team possible.
Right.
I'm a Redskins fan. I'll draft a Cowboy all day long if it'll help my fantasy team. I'm still going to root for the Redskins. But ultimately, again, fantasy should be fun. These are the players you're going to root for. So if you don't want to root for a Giant or an Eagle because you're a diehard, he's a diehard Eagles fan. If you don't want to root for a Giant, I get it. You should root for who you want. I mean, again, Greeny struggles at fantasy because he doesn't want to pick a Patriot because he loves his Jets.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Fantasy football is about winning.
Right.
You got to go all costs, man. You pick a guy from a team you don't like if you want to win. How bad do you want it, Greeny?
I'm telling you right now, I'm not doing it. I told my son last year, there's no way in the world that I'm drafting Rob Gronkowski on our team. I would rather lose. I don't put. I've already milked a cow. Once you've been defecated on a cow once, pretty much nothing bad can ever happen to you again. So
by the way, that should be the title of your next book.
Yeah.
Who says it won't be? Okay. Caliendo and Matt Berry are here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. I want to do some of these over-unders with Matt. But first, I am told that, Frank, we have something ready to go.
Yeah, they brought this to me yesterday, and I started reading Matthew Berry's draft manifesto.
Draft day manifesto.
You are
19th annual.
you are insane. The way your brain works. We're going to do a little Morgan Freeman to start it. This is what you and I like Matthew. I'm doing the Trey Wingo where right before I make fun of somebody, I'm going to tell you how much I care about the person.
Right.
But this is insane the way your brain works. That this is in a draft day manifesto.
By all accounts, the Flintstones were in trouble. Fred, Wilma, Barney, and Betty needed rescuing. This was to be a summer tentpole movie. This was the Flintstones. This was Spielberg.
You got to get the name right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, man, fantasy football and life, we often get into our own heads. Like you, Greeny. Overthinking and not seeing the quarry for the stone. See how we work that in there? Or something like that. The direct and obvious approach is more often the correct one. It's the Flintstones. Make it funny.
And by the way, completely in context too. Very, that's the whole thing. No, there's a whole story. There's a moral to that story. It's a very interesting story. To me, it's a very interesting story about how Brian Levant got the job directing the Flintstones.
Okay.
He was a dark horse candidate to get it.
Which, by the way, Barney Rubble played by Rick Moranis.
Very true.
That's
that ties it all in. Okay.
Can I tell you the story very quickly so you won't have to read the whole, because it sounds insane when you read it.
But that's what makes it better.
There's this opening story of this, but basically Spielberg wanted to do the Flintstones movie, had the rights to it, met with all these huge, big-name directors. Everyone came in and was just like, I see Fred as a Christ figure. Yeah, I mean, like all these, like seriously. No, people,
Barney, what's up with Judas?
Right. It was this insane thing. Like everyone came in like,
is he coming to dinner?
Right. It was like I see them as the Jodes. I see Barney, like it was like a Grapes of Wrath thing. Like everyone was trying to impress Spielberg with all this symbolism. And Brian Levant, who had mostly been a TV producer and writer, director, he'd done Beethoven and Problem Child too, but wasn't like a big A-list director, came into Spielberg and he was just like, come on, man, it's the Flintstones. I'll make it funny. Like that was his pitch.
Right.
Like it's the Flintstones. I'll make it like the simplest. And Spielberg was like, good, you're the only guy that gets it. And, the movie made $300 million.
Feels a bit like Occam's Razor here.
I was just going to say that.
Doesn't it feel Occam's Razor?
Yeah.
We didn't know what that was, and Brian Windhorst just drops Occam's Razor on us in the middle of a conversation as though that's someone everybody knows. And the truth is what it turns out to be. Occam's Razor is the principle that anytime there are a variety of different explanations for something, the simplest explanation is usually the truth.
Yeah. Right.
And that was where we developed Golick's hammer.
Right.
Which is, in any debate between multiple people, the biggest and strongest one usually wins.
There you go.
And that's Golick's hammer.
You are a Flintstone character.
Right. Golick is, well, he was Fred on
Goal Rock.
I was Fred one year on
right.
When you were on Halloween, he did Fred. Give me a little more of that Fred.
I don't even remember.
Barney, those are my Fruity Pebbles.
Hey, Fred, I got him and I'm running. Yeah, I'm nailing a lot of stuff today.
You really are.
Yeah, we're going. You guys want Ted Knight from 1970? Spalding, I want you on the golf course in 5 minutes. Chop, chop.
The beginning of that sounds a little Trumpish as well.
Well, it happens. There's a lot of that. It bleeds into a lot of different things. It's a tremendous situation. And right now, you're getting the best ratings you've had in a while. They wanted me to play Fred Flintstone. I told them this. I went to Spielberg. We're great friends. We count our money together. And we were spending some time trying to figure out what we should do, and I ended up with the Fruity Pebbles. And that's what makes time travel possible. That and a flux capacitor.
I don't even know. Okay. Over-unders are brought to you by La Quinta. Book at LQ.com and win at business. I've got some actual fantasy football questions for Matthew Berry. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
The over-under on rushing yards this season for Ezekiel Elliott, who, bear in mind, barring some sort of overturn and an appeal here, is going to be suspended the first 6 games. 1,000 yards rushing for Zeke Elliott this year, over or under?
Give me the over. 10 games, over 100 yards. Yep.
Greeny, really quickly, how many yards do you need a game?
That would be 100.
Good job.
Even I could do that. I'm very bad at simple math, but that's about as simple as it gets. So even last year, he led the NFL last year in rushing by 318 yards, with just a tick over 1,600. So he did get there. Okay, over under a number of games played for Le'Veon Bell this year, 14.
I will actually take the over. Contract year, Le'Veon Bell plays all 16.
He only played in over 13 regular season games once. Here's a big one for fantasy questions. 30 touchdown, over-under on touchdown passes for Kirk Cousins this year at 30.
I'm going to take the under. And I love Kirk Cousins this year. But people forget how mobile he is. 9 rushing touchdowns by him in the last 2 years. So I think he gets over 30 total touchdowns. I don't know if he gets 30 touchdown passes.
He lost some weapons, too, to throw to, right? I mean,
he lost some weapons. He lost Garcon and Deshaun Jackson, but he gets Terrell Pryor, 6'4". Josh Dotson, the rookie out of TCU from 2 years ago. He missed all of last year. He's back. And Jamison Crowder's going to take a big step up. You want to talk about a sleeper this year. Crowder's going to have a huge year.
Over-unders with Matthew Berry. Number of touchdown catches and now by New York Giants receivers Odell Beckham Jr. and Brandon Marshall combined 15 touchdowns. Over-under.
Over. Absolutely. Brandon Marshall's going to have a huge year. The best red zone wide receiver in the NFL since 2012, and Eli Manning, who I think is the best quarterback that Brandon Marshall's ever played with in his career. And now they've got defensive attention on Odell Beckham Jr. By the way, Eli Manning since 2012, 7th most pass attempts in the red zone. McAdoo doesn't like to run when they get in close. Marshall's going to have a huge year.
I like the over on that, too.
And then finally, here's one for Golick. Over-under 9 games started by Mitchell Trubisky this season.
Wow. I'm still going to take the under. I'm not going to buy into everything I saw in that first game. So I'll take the under on that, but I do think he does play this year.
And finally, Frank Caliendo, if the Bears do play on Monday Night Football and I don't have the schedule in front of me, and Mitchell Trubisky is playing, what do you think John Gruden will have to say about him?
I love this guy, man. Just love the name Trubisky. Wasn't that the name of the guy who hosted Jeopardy? Mitchell Trubisky?
It's Alex Trebek.
Alex Trebek. It's close. It had a T in it, man.
Right. But you love him, too.
I love Alex Trebek. You ever see how when he's got the questions in his hands, he knows the answers? Tell you what, I want to be Alex Trebek. Hey, man, you forgot to give that answer in the form of a question. You're not going to be coming back. You're done.
I'm not going to lie. I love that. The best part of this hour was Rick Moranis.
It happens. It's a pretty good one. Really good to go back in time. Maybe I'll play some kind of character that does that. Okay, I got to have a shower.
Matthew Berry's got to run again. His new show debuts tomorrow, but he's got 14 more hours of this fantasy football marathon to do. Great to see you, Matthew, as
Thanks,
always.
guys.
Best of luck with
Appreciate it.
everything.
Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com.
And that's right. The Fantasy Football Marathon is brought to you by DraftKings.
Frank Caliendo is here. Toteboard says we're at over 1.2 million teams that have signed up so far to play fantasy football with us on the ESPN Fantasy Football app. And so we invite you to please do so. Great fun to be had all year long. I just opened up my Twitter feed. Frank Caliendo is here. And Mike Reese has a story that they asked, and I'll hold off on the invitation until I get through the story. They asked Bill Belichick on his expectations for this season because Brady was asked on WEEI this morning, and he doesn't want to get into all the talk about them going 16-0. And the Belichick quote I see here is, right now the only expectation I have is to go out and have a good practice today. Your thoughts on Belichick?
Well, my Belichick impression is really just mumbling. So that's the funny. Without the makeup and stuff, it's just this. It's going to be. So that's about it.
But your only expectation is to go out and have a good practice today.
Well, that's what we want to do is have a good round of practice. That's all I got.
Then that's it.
But that's it. But it's so good.
It's all you need, right?
I guess.
He also does this.
I could do it as Rick Moranis.
Okay, we got to have a good practice.
But Belichick does this smacking of the lips thing.
He does that a lot. He does the thing where he'll be talking in the middle of a press conference like, we're just going to do this kind of a thing. And if once you notice it, you can't not see it anymore. It ruins
And you're waiting
everything
for the
he
next
does.
one.
Yeah, he does it constantly. It's very weird.
Earlier this morning, when Frank was in here, he did a little bit of his Lou Holtz imitation. Just give us 5 seconds of that for those who do
it sometimes. Why?
All right, exactly. So some people...
That's the vowel. Why is sometimes a vowel and sometimes it isn't? In the word happy, it's a vowel. In the word yes, it's a consonant. It plays both sides in the field. It's defense and offense.
Well, this time I actually understood what you were saying.
Sometimes I'm trying to be more articulate. Articulation is key in
I know you've told us, but how is he toward your impressions?
I've steered clear.
Really?
No, I don't know. I think it would be because he talks about that. He's like a guy who sounds like me made a motivational speaker. You want to start kicking and I go out there and
So Bill Sheridan tweets that watching Frank do Holtz on TV and watching the closed captioning try to keep up.
I say what's the mumbo jumbo question mark? It was like when Buckwheat sings on Saturday Night Live. You can't watch she comes a lady and it goes down una paluna bunker.
I know what you were saying.
That's pretty good, huh? Nobody's watched the best of Eddie Murphy a couple times.
It says here got as far as what the heck, and then it just stopped and gave up. One of the other things we've not heard you do this morning is Stephen A. Smith.
I agree totally. And henceforth, I understand that my vocabulary must be rectified in this situation. And to know that Matthew Berry's manifesto includes the Flintstones makes me, in perpetuity, fantastified.
I'm not going to lie. The whole Flintstones thing threw me a little bit
too.
from Matthew Berry.
It's the more he explained it, the more I started enjoying it. But the way he uses the Flintstones throughout the whole thing is pretty interesting.
Now, I'm a fan of the Flintstones, so you equate anything to the Flintstones. I'm a happy guy. I mean, who doesn't love a good Brontosaurus burger? I get it. But that was interesting to me.
Someone put down here, do you do Jeff Van Gundy? He's not really very imitable.
No, I've been working on it, but it's not anywhere.
Chris Farley, people are requesting.
Oh, really?
Dear sweet heaven, here we go. Okie dokie. We're going down the old school way. All right, let's take a look. Let's read a little manifesto if we can. Which brings us slowly once more into the 19th annual edition of the Draft Day Manifesto. Howdy, partner. Pull up a boulder and make yourself comfortable. Can I get you a Brontosaurus burger? That's the second time it's been mentioned in this entire show. Okie dokie.
Oh, my goodness.
Like wingies.
Tommy like wingies.
And then the final one
The
is...
funny thing is, I've worked with his brothers and the whole Farley family. They all do this.
They
it's
really?
So funny that Johnny, how you doing? All right.
Final one, because we are going to run out of time here. I haven't heard you do Jim Rome yet today, and I love it.
Phenomenal. That should be the Draft Day Manifesto. The key to sort through all that and not get lost or try to reinvent the wheel, it's the Flintstones. Make it funny, you know? Lastly, remember that what we do is for fun. All capital letters. This ain't pastime, okay? We all get nervous. We get these... we all sweat wins, but ultimately, it's a game. Calm down. There's plenty of negativity in the world already. No reason for you to add it over. Why I had trouble reading the word add is beyond me. It's not a hobby or to lose a friendship over. Unless you've got a shot at a title. I mean, come on. You can always get new friends.
Frank, we love you. We're out of time.
Frank.
Thanks, everybody. Give me the tote board. We're over 1.2 million. Sign up and play fantasy football. See you tomorrow.
I guess we're out.